Hey everybody, this is your quiz review video for the quiz that is on Tuesday the 26th. That's next week. It's covering measurement, standard measurement and metric measurement and conversions of converting one measurement into another. And so I want to remind you that your job is for this video to have your notebook open, take notes on the things that we're writing down. Even if you have it on a previous page already, you're still going to copy it based on the video, and because there's actually a little wrinkle that I'm adding, one new little step to some of it. So make sure that you're copying it all down, take a photo of it, attach it to this assignment. So I have evidence that you watched the video, and that's your homework for this for tonight. So anyway, I have that here. Please also remember that we have two different packets that we've covered in class already now. The first one we got was about standard, units of measurement for length and for volume. And it has information that's up here that's helpful. This is all stuff that we're going to kind of cover in the video in just a moment, up here as well. So make sure that you are looking through that packet. If for some reason that has been misplaced, you still have a little bit of time to come in and check with me. But the tables and the content that's in these packets is part of what we're covering in this video. So make sure you have that. The part of this video you don't, or part of the packet that you don't have to worry about is page 144. That's the one that is about ounces and pounds and things like that. We're not going to cover that on the quiz, so don't worry about that. The other packet was the one about metric measurement, and it has this little metric table up at the top that sort of convert things. It's also got this kind of table here that was helpful with converting things. So just make sure that you have that packet handy. That is covering metric, length, weight, and volume, because they have a whole different system that is helpful for being able to use the same table for all three of those types of things. So we've got that covered in here. The only part of this packet that is not present is the temperature part. We're not going to have anything about temperature on the quiz. So just please review these packets. Look at those. I would say any problems that are on those pages are fair game. So feel free to review those. Okay, here we go. What's on our quiz? Converting standard volume measures, gallons, quarts, pints, ounces, and so on. Converting standard units of length, miles, feet, yards, inches. Converting metric measurements, that's on that table that we'll talk about, the meters and grams and liters. And then any tables that we are using or charts that we are using to help kind of memorize these things also will have a place on this quiz. In other words, I may ask you to draw what we're about to draw, the big gallon, quarts, pints, and so on. This table here. I'm going to ask you to draw that on our quiz, and then that will help you solve or answer some of those conversions that we're going to be doing on the quiz. So we already, again, you have this on a previous page, although there's one little addition that I don't think I had on those notes. So I want to make sure we have that here. You got another color marker. All right, we've got gallons, quarts, pints, cups, and ounces that all can fit into this conversion table. So, or chart, I keep calling it a table, but it's really a chart or a diagram. We're going to start by drawing ourselves a giant G that stands for gallons. Okay, 1 gallon has 4 quarts. Ooh, I want a bigger Q than that. Sorry, guys. Let's go bigger. Quart, 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 quart. There's 4 quarts in a gallon. All right, and when you think quart, think like quarter, right? That's kind of has that same root prefix, right? So there's 4 quarts in a gallon, 4 quarters, right? Inside of each quart is 2 pints. So we have to get a couple of gigantic P's in there. And I know some of you are laughing at what I just said, and that's fine. So there are 2 pints in every quart. All right, 2 pints, 2 pints, 2 pints. Inside of each pint are 2 cups. And then each cup, and this is the new part, each cup is 8 ounces. Okay, 1 cup equals 8 ounces. So each cup here is 8, and that's a number you're gonna have to memorize. But the nice thing is there's a couple different places where we see 8s. We see 8 of these pints here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that might help you remember that 1 cup has 8 ounces. On the top half up here, we got 2, 4, 6, 8 cups that are up here, but there's also 2, 4, 6, 8 cups down here. That might help you remember that 8 cups, or that 1 cup is 8 ounces. So based on this chart, I should be able to say, I've got 3 quarts. How many ounces is that? And you should be able to figure out 3 quarts gives me 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 cups. And then I go 12 times 8 will give me 96. When you do the math, 96 ounces. So you should be able to do that conversion, showing me some of your thinking if you had to do a multiplication problem like 12 times 8. I just did it in my head, but you can't check my work in my head. There we go. So if I were to say, I have such and such number of ounces, how many pints is that? Or you should be able to convert using this table. That will help you figure that out, all right? So drawing this table is going to be one of the required steps on this quiz. So make sure you've practiced to remember how to draw it. But it's pretty friendly, especially when you're thinking about quarts and you're thinking 4 of those, right? 4 giant Qs. 2 P's inside each, and then 2 cups inside of each of the P's. All right, that should be helpful. Gallons, quarts, pints, cups, ounces. All right, so make sure that that is something that you have. I'm gonna have you pause the video if you need take time to copy this down, and then we'll continue on, and you can unpause it when you are ready. Okay, here we go. Standard measures of length. We've got inches, feet, yards, miles. All right, are the 4 standard units that we use for our measures. If you need something smaller than an inch, then it's a fraction of an inch, like 1/16 of an inch is how they would do that, right? So if you need something smaller than an inch, which often we do in real life, then that's going to be a fraction of an inch. And you get to use fractions, yes. 12 inches equals 1 foot. 3 feet equal 1 yard. And 5,280 feet equal a mile. Knowing that and having that memorized, there's not really I don't know of any special trick to remember that. I think that's a straight up memorization thing, that you got to remember about 12 inches being a foot and 3 feet being a yard and 5,280 feet being a mile. I should be able to say to you, I've got 2 miles of fence that I am putting around my property. I don't have a property that has that much space, but let's pretend I did. How many yards is that? You should be able to do that kind of conversion. That will require some multiplication or some division. So let's do that problem. Let's see what I said. I have 2 miles of fence. And how many yards? Right? So I have to do a conversion here to be able to figure out how to solve that problem, because I got one thing that's in miles and I've got another thing that's in yards. And I think the way that I'm gonna have to step through that is going through feet. So how many feet are there in 2 miles? Well, I know that 5,280 is 1 mile. 5,280 is the second mile. I've got 10,560 feet in 2 miles. How many yards is that? Well, I know 3 feet in every yard. So I would take my 10,560 and I would have to divide that by 3. Right? 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 10 is 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, I get 1. Bring down my 5. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. Subtract, I get a 0. That's friendly. Bring down to 6. 3 goes into 6 twice. 2 times 3 is 6. That's also really friendly. Bring down my 0. 3 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 3 is 0, and I subtract, and I'm finished. 3,520 yards in 2 miles would be your answer. So you're going to have to do some conversion there. Can't promise we're going to have a lot of problems like this. A lot of them are going to probably be conversions of feet into yards or feet into miles, but I want to make sure that you know about how you would convert 2 miles into yards if you needed to go from big to small. Okay, there you are. Okay, so that covers our standard units of measure. We've got the feet, miles, inches. We've got ounces, gallons, quarts, pints, cups. All right. The next step is going to be our metric conversions, which is in some ways complex, but also in some ways friendlier. So let's take a look. This table here is one that I want you to be able to memorize. And what's tricky about this is that it's new content for us. And in the notes that we wrote in class the other day, this was more stacked vertically, that it went kilo, hecto, deca, deci, centi, milli down, vertical from top to bottom. But the table that's in your math packet, this one right here, I think is actually really helpful, and it lays it out horizontally. And I think that you'll see in a minute why I think that's actually beneficial to us, for us to think about it this way. So the other thing that's not, oh no, that is in your table on that worksheet, is that what I had not written in my notes when I had it on the board the other day was the center part, which was counting as 1 meter or 1 gram or 1 liter. And then all of these other prefixes that are on the outside talk about whether it is 10 of these or 100 of these or 1,000 of these or a tenth, hundredths, and thousandths of these. All right, so here's how I want you to remember that in the very center of this table, which I'm going to ask that you write down, is your 1 meter, 1 gram, or 1 liter. This is measurement of length. This is a measurement of weight. This is a measurement of volume. But the same process of converting one to the other works for all 3 of those units of measure. That's why I think the metric system actually ultimately is a little more friendly. Deca over here, and so I also want you to think about this like almost like a place value chart, like we've talked about, like where a decimal point might be, right? And so your decimal point would maybe be like right here, because here's 1 on this side, and this over here is 1/10, and then this is 100th, and this one here is 1,000th. I kind of hope that's going to be helpful, because deci means 1/10 of a meter. So a decimeter is a tenth of a meter. A decigram is a tenth of a gram. A deciliter is a tenth of a liter. Centimeter is 100th of a meter, 100th of a gram, 100th of a liter, centiliter, right? Milli. So that might be helpful for you to think. this prefix, you might think century in terms of your remembering what centi means. The only thing that's a little tricky about that is that a century is 100 years. That means 100 times 1 year. And this is 100th of a year, but that might be a way for you to help remember what the centi prefix means. Millennium is 1,000 years. This is 1,000th of a liter, 1,000th of a gram, or 1,000th of a meter. But that milli has the same prefix, millennium. So that might be helpful for you to remember these guys, right? And then of course there's decade, right? But the problem again is a decade is 10 years. This is 1/10 of a year, but those prefixes might be helpful for you to remember which one's which, okay? Deca is 10 of the meters. A decameter is 10 meters. A decagram is 10 grams. A decaliter is 10 liters. 100 of, come on, Mr. Dell, of, and 1,000 of. A hectogram is 100 grams. A kilogram is 1,000 grams. All right. So I'm wanting you to remember this chart here. I can see on a quiz me giving you this middle part and asking you to fill in the prefixes for these outside parts, or for some of them, right? So having those memorized of deca, hecto, kilo, deci, centi, milli is going to be part of something that I would want you to work on. And that this is 1/10, 100th, and 1,000th. 10, 100, 1,000. All right. That's going to be essential when I give you a question like, convert, I have 7 hectograms. How many centigrams is that? Right? So remember that on your table, it shows you, this is really helpful, that how I'm going to convert, I have hectograms and I'm going to centigrams. Each step that you go is times 10. Times 10. And that is because there's more of these in these, right? In order to get a liter, I need 10 deciliters. This over here means I have 10 of the liters. But in order for me to have a liter, I need 10 deciliters. 10 deciliters makes 1 liter. So in terms of multiplying times 10, it means I'm counting how many of those things do I need. So that is going to be helpful for you to remember when you're doing your chart. So having this part of your table written down, the times 10 or divided by 10, is going to be really essential. Might as well do that one too. All right? Likewise, going this direction, it's dividing by 10. And we know that rule of 0, that's a plus, Mr. Dell. Which really divided by 10, I can't talk and write at the same time. That rule of 0 that says when I'm multiplying times 10, I'm adding zeros to the end of the answer. When I'm dividing by 10s, I'm removing zeros from the answer, or moving my decimal point over, right, is going to be really, really helpful. So in my question of, I don't remember what number I used, but let's say I said 7. I have 7 hectograms equals how many centigrams? I think that's what I said, but if not, here it is. That's what I'm saying now. 7 hectograms times 10, 7 times 10, 70. Times 10, 700. 7,000. 70,000. How many jumps did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros that I added on to the end, right? So times 10s, or dividing by 10s, removing them. If it was reversed, I said I have 70,000 centigrams. How many hectograms is that? Take away a 0 for every jump that you're making, right? So it should if you can get that part down and remember on our table what's multiply times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, divide by 10, divided by 10, divided by 10, going each direction, that should be really, really helpful to you for doing that kind of metric conversion. All right. So then, is there more, you say, Mr. Adele? The only other thing that I'm expecting to appear is at least one question that was pulled from our homework. I don't even have it written up here on the board, but I'm just going to remind you. The homework from Tuesday night, which were those word problems. I'm going to pick at least one, maybe two of those word problems that are going to use some of these conversions of metrics or standard to be able to solve. So as an example, the question about the thread, the bobbins of thread or the spool of thread. Mary buys a spool of thread for sewing. There's 10 meters of thread on the spool. She uses 210 centimeters. How much is left? So that's going to be a little subtraction problem, but then you're converting from meters into centimeters, so you can subtract. And then it will tell you on the question, I want my answer in centimeters, or I want my answer in meters. Okay? So that you're going to show me your thinking on that, and you're going to do a step-by-step. I know that, I know that 1 meter is 100 centimeters. I know that 10 meters means that I have, right? So you're just going to follow through the steps there. I know that in 10 meters, I have 1,000 centimeters, right? Then you could subtract 1,000, take away your 210, and what's left, right? So make sure that you are looking through those questions, because the questions that are there's how many of them? There's only 10 of these word problems. The exact word problem is going to be used. I'm just going to change the numbers a little bit. So if you're comfortable with all